Hello, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining this stream. We're continuing work on a Ruby and Rails gem foray, and let's go, right in it. And let me bring on our guest, Chris Oliver. Hey, Chris.
Hey,
Good evening.
good evening. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Had a nice working day. It's been a good day here in Belgium, sunny day. So that's good.
Nice. Yeah, it's been super cold here and now it's like really warm like summer and it's kind of I just want to be outside now.
And it's still daytime there, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's 2
Ah,
p.m. here.
all right. So sorry for keeping you inside, man.
All good. All good.
So yeah, let's dive right into it. So last time we worked on the Ruby gem a little bit,
hmm
and yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but I built a little bit further upon it. I ported some of the functionality.
Awesome.
So maybe I'll show you some things that have been added first,
Yeah,
and then maybe we can see what we can do for like the Rails kind of integration.
perfect. Yeah.
Let me share my screen. Sharing which screen? This screen. So a little bit of screen management here. Oh, this should be gone. Like that. Okay, and here we have the Ruby gem. Let me bring on Ray as well. This is the development build. Or our team has added a little bit of functionality that I'd like to show you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've made these examples. You started with this. You had like an example file, and I thought, hey, that's nice to have like in the project itself or in the gem itself, so you can just try some things out.
hmm
So we can send all these values to Ray. You see, it all works.
Awesome.
It
Yep.
all it also says like it's on this line even. So I got that
Oh,
to work.
great. Yay.
And here, if you send this, what I call array, what is in the Ruby world a hash, I guess.
hmm
Uh, this is a little bit unfinished. You see it a little bit here, but these things are collapsible, so you can easily inspect like which kinds, which items are in there, and if you don't need this, then you can just close it, and we'll add some behavior to this as well.
Yeah. Did you have to build that the generator to create the HTML and the JavaScript for that piece?
No, it's just JSON that gets sent to the
Okay.
app, and
Gotcha.
the app inspects it. It seemed much cleaner to me this way, because
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't find like a good component in the Ruby world that does that, where you get like the HTML with all the JavaScript in it. So this was the most straightforward way to do it.
Mhm. Makes
Uh,
sense. Yeah.
let's see what we have. The pause. Yeah, I got the pause working. So
Oh, cool.
you can pause the Ruby now. So yeah, now it isn't sitting after the pause. I'm hanging here, and if we continue, then we're after the pause, and then we're further.
Awesome.
Of course, all the colors that you want are there. Let's do the colors. There we are. Maybe one
Okay.
more.
Awesome.
The trace, so you know what where you're calling from. I
Mhm.
also got that to work, and I must say it's much nicer in Ruby to write this than in PHP.
Is it
Yeah, I'll show you the implementation. So yeah, this all works. These are our
nice?
clickable links, and yeah, I got a bunch of payloads here. Here the origin factory. I think this is my favorite line now in the whole project. Like, I don't need to have a return statement. This is like a beautiful way of having like a closure, like in a find. Everything is an object, so I can just to like include on this. it's just beautiful. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
due to the language, I really enjoyed writing that line. So yeah, that's where we are now. I still have to do some things like the config file, but I
Mhm.
think I'll be able to manage that on my own. I don't want to bother you with that. I want to bother you with the pieces that probably will take me a long time to do just right. Um,
Cool.
yeah, maybe I can show you like the Laravel integration. So you,
Yeah. Yeah, I pulled up the docs page for it.
Mhm.
And it looks like, it sends cache events and jobs and requests and other things like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be something that'll be interesting to have the equivalents in
Mhm.
Rails. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think we should, yeah, pick one of those and try to get it working. Like list all the queries or list all the events. I don't know
Hmm.
which one a good is to start with.
Yeah, it's a good question. I know the requests will be an easy one to do because we can hook into the controllers and basically just set it up so that every request that comes through will trigger a array call, and then
Hmm.
we'll have to send in, I don't know if we'll convert that to JSON or something or whatever, but we
Yeah,
can talk about that. And then I'm not entirely sure, but I know there's a way to hook into every query that happens in the database, and then probably the same for jobs. So we can look into that and poke around and see how to do it. I know it's possible, so
yeah.
yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay, cool. I think where I also need a little bit of your wisdom is yeah, how to like require another package and
Yes. Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know what? I'll first, yeah, maybe demonstrate for people that don't know what we're talking about, what the integration in Laravel exactly does. Then we'll source dive a bit, and then I can hand it over to you. Like, Chris, do your magic here.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I got a demo, the Ray demo up here, and it has like an example of everything. So you mentioned the queries, for instance. Yeah, this is a command. This is the Laravel app, by the way. So I installed the Laravel package in here, and basically I've added a command for each of the things that Ray can handle. And
Okay.
in this particular command, I'm going to say to Ray, "Hey, start showing all queries from here." And then I'm going to make a couple of queries, and then I stop showing the queries. I make another query, and I don't want to show that one. So people can say like, I want to have like queries in between those.
Okay. Okay.
Let me execute this one. Query and update on null. What's this? Ah, yeah, I probably don't have a user in the database. Going to comment this out again, like that. Yeah, and here you see that we have like our query. Yeah, these are like specific things already. A connection name, the time it took that query, and we even detect where the query was made, so that you know, hey, there was a query here.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a little bit how it works. If you have like multiple queries here, then we'll probably have like both of them there. That's how
Hmm.
that works. Um, let's source dive the Laravel package a little bit. So here in Composer, this is like the equivalent of the gem file, right?
Yep.
Here we require the Laravel Ray package. And yeah, I'm using development branches here because this is my app where I'm developing everything in, and I'm using like the master versions or the branched versions, so I don't need to do composer install, composer update, or pull in all gems all the times to see
Right.
a change.
Hmm.
But let's go to the package itself. So Laravel Ray, it's here. Yeah, so this is the package itself. And if you take a look at composer.json, then these are all the requirements. And you see that the base package here is a requirement of this Laravel specific integration. So everything what works in the specific integration will work here as well, and we're going to build on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't know if we'll need to do that in the gem, but this is set up a little bit in a special way. I'm going to take a little bit of a sidestep and go into the framework agnostic integration. If we take a look at the source, the helpers, then here is the ray function is being defined here. So whenever ray gets called a function, we call this, and here is a little introspection that gets made like, hey, if Laravel ray exists, we are going to use that one, and we're not going to use the regular one. That's how that works. So there's a little bit of code to make sure that we use like the right integration, and we also have like if we detect like WordPress rays here, then we are going to use the WordPress ray and so on.
Gotcha.
So when we call ray, the function ray in a Laravel app, then we are basically using this class, which extends like the base ray. If you take a look at start showing queries, I guess. Start showing queries. And it's here. Right package, right? Of show queries. Show queries, yeah. In a previous iteration, all these functions were called start showing queries, but then I abbreviated it to show queries. Yeah, here is where things already get a little bit hairy, I guess. So what this package has are so-called watchers. And you can see here for everything special that we hook into, we have like a watcher class. Let's take a look at like the query watcher. Here we're using the app function to get like an instance of this query watcher. And that query watcher, that is basically set up as a singleton. So there's only one instance running the whole time. If I call this multiple times, I'm always getting the same instance back. I'll show you where that is set up in a bit. Why are we setting it up as a singleton? Well, all of these watchers, they can be enabled and they can be disabled. And if we wouldn't set it up as a singleton, then it wouldn't remember like its own state. If we enable it and the instance is lost, then it forgets that it's enabled. That's why it's a singleton. Yep. And then we hook in a little bit in the Laravel specific functionality. So every watcher here, it has like enabled and disabled functions, and also a register function. That enabled function, in case of the query watcher here, what it does, it says to Laravel, hey, we're going to enable the query log. This is something Laravel specific, and this says to Laravel, like every query that gets executed now, it should fire off an event called query executed, and we can listen for that there. And with disable, if we call disable on the query watcher, then we just disable the query log, so no events are being transmitted again. The register, that's where we are going to listen for those queries. So register gets called every time that the application is booted. Then we are going to register this. So we are always listening for queries. But if the watcher isn't enabled, we aren't going to do anything here.
Okay, gotcha.
And if it is enabled, yeah, then we are going to send things to Ray. So then we are going to, again, that's like the story that you've seen in the framework agnostic one. We are going to create a payload and we are going to send a request to Ray with that payload.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually basically how all of these things work. If we take a look at maybe the cache watcher, it will more or less work the same. Oh, this is maybe a little bit of an maybe a complicated one. Maybe the view watcher is a little bit simpler. Yeah, this is a much simpler one. So it has also a register, and via the parent class, it has enabled and disabled. And in register, again, we're listening to events that Laravel emits. So whenever a view is rendered in Laravel, it will fire off an event that starts with composing, and we are going to just get stuff from that event and send that to Ray. That is
Okay.
basically all of this works. That is the gist. I don't know if you have any questions, Chris, because I know it's already a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the Rails stuff is kind of similar. Like I think I know that there's they call it active support instrument or instrumentation through this notifications functionality. So basically, whenever a SQL query gets rendered, you can hook into that in a similar way where you're doing with the event listen here for composing.
Yeah.
And I think we can probably use that same functionality. It might take a little research of, um, finding the names that Rails uses for views or controllers or whatever, but it's intended for kind of the same purpose, like
Okay.
to intercept that and then maybe measure the time when it started and when it finished and so on. But then you can also hook in and do whatever you want with that. And I actually just used that functionality recently, totally unrelated, but for basically sending out webhooks. So you could use that and broadcast the event of like, hey, this webhook came in, and anybody could register and listen to that and process it. And you can kind of do that here and listen to the Rails ones. So that will probably be, I'm guessing, the approach that we will use. And actually, it looks like the Rails guides have a long list of events that are available. So we'll have to dig into those and set it up. But we can do probably like a very simple version of it where we could hook in first just to the Rails requests, like you would do in a before action. So any request that comes in, we'll just say, hey, we see this request coming in, and we can do that first and then start working on like a more advanced version of it and see how that goes. So yeah.
Sounds good. I think that for me, it's like the setup around it is like the most important piece, so that I know like how to structure these bits. And if you have like one good example, like we're listening to this, I think that would already be amazing if we can achieve that.
Yeah, sounds good. So let me, I guess, get set up here.
Yeah.
New version of Ray to install. Seems like you've been busy.
Yes.
Cool.
We're constantly polishing it a little bit, so
All right, share screen.
let me remove my screen here.
There we go.
Okay, Chris, you're on.
Yeah. So the Rails guides have some docs on the active support instrumentation that I was just talking about, where this is an example of you can subscribe to any time a process action happens with your controller. So basically running a request, and then you get the name of it and the start and finish time and the unique ID and your data that was passed in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just printing out the info right there, but we can kind of take that probably and send that over to Ray. So we'll have to play with it a little bit and see, what details are given during that. So they've got a payload with some extra information. In this example, we may not necessarily get what we want from all that. So we'll have to
Mm-hmm.
look and see. But maybe the first place to start is, let's just have a Rails app that we can work with.
Yeah.
Um, I've got probably here some random ones that we can um, use. Let me see if let's just create a new Rails app. So Rails new, Rails example. Oops, we want the template for that. There we go. This may take a minute. But I think what we'll do is kind of set it up so that we've got a Rails app that we can use with, this is going to set up user accounts and Bootstrap and just a couple other things. So then we'll be able to add like a model or something, and we can hook into maybe the active record queries. So for example, this one will show you SQL queries that are run. And so that's a good example there of what data we would get. So we'd be able to send over like that JSON there and
Yep.
have that. So we can probably use one of those as a good starting place. And some of this other integration stuff, like depending on what we want to record for the requests, we may want to do it in a different way so that we get like all of the URLs and the headers and other information you may want to log over there. I'm not sure if this will include all that or not, so we'll find out.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
still
I'm happy that
compiling this.
that for you it's a learning experience a little bit as well. So you get something out of this as well.
Yeah, yeah. These are always the things that they're kind of unless you were doing some maybe like logging for performance or something, like you're not going to usually dive into this code. So it's one that probably a lot of people haven't touched. I haven't really touched this much before. Um, so maybe eventually Node SAS will finally finish compiling, but
Yeah, it's a little bit my guess that you find this very fun to do as well because you're also like in creating tools for other developers and you
mhm.
need to know these things a little bit to build
Yeah, because
interesting stuff, right?
a lot of when you're building tools for Rails, you have to learn sort of the internals of Rails so you can do some like meta programming almost to build
Yeah.
something. Because you need to know how the plumbing works underneath in order to make that work. So yeah, it is definitely fun to dig into these things. And then sometimes you find things you can improve and you can contribute back to Rails or Laravel or whatever, which is always good.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there we go. Finally, Node SAS is compiled.
Yeah, that's always been a slow one, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be ready to go here in a minute. I think what we'll probably do is skip this for the first part, and I'll show you how we can hook in and just use Ray like directly, and then we'll create a Rails gem that depends on Ray and includes that, and then
Yeah.
we can do the integrations inside of that because there is several things. Rails calls them engines or rail ties, and they're here in the doc somewhere. Engine.
And what is an engine that is a specific Rails
So
package?
yeah, so they are kind of like it's kind of like how do I describe it? A Rails app that lives inside of a Rails app. So you can register things that when Rails boots, it will go through all of the setup steps, and it will look at your gems and say, "Hey, do you have a engine or a railtie?" And they're kind of the same thing. But those can then say, "Hey, when you're loading this package, go ahead and add these other features to it." So, for example, when the controllers load or the views load or something, the Ray gem could say, "Oh, let's go add in this helper method or something so that
Ah,
it can
yeah,
be used in the views and so on."
yeah,
And then similar to like Cashier with its like payment pages and stuff, you can basically register other views that your library can provide that could be accessed in your main app.
yeah.
Um,
Got it. It's like the place where everything is registered and booted up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And so a railtie is like a very simple version of that, and a Rails engine allows you to add database models and views and controllers and stuff that are
yeah,
automatically available. So
yeah.
cool. So let's go ahead and go into our Rails app here, and we'll go into the gem file, and we'll add Ray to it. So we've got that.
Oh, Chris, your font is very small.
It is. Let
Yeah,
me bump it up there. How's that?
yeah, that's better for the eyes. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh yeah, and our name of the gem was Ruby Ray, is that right?
Yeah, that's Ruby Ray.
Because Ray was already taken, of course.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll bump this up too.
cool.
And we need to run our database migrations. And we can boot up the Rails server now. Do.
There it goes.
It's going.
Yeah,
There we
there
go.
we go.
Maybe the JavaScript was. Oh, I need to run yarn.
Is this like
Oh.
the default vanilla project for Rails?
No, this is one that I created so that I have user accounts and
Yeah,
Bootstrap automatically installed and stuff.
yeah,
The base Rails one doesn't really have anything at all. So this
yeah,
was just a few features I can use a little bit easier for screencasts and stuff.
yeah. Got it.
Okie dokie. So that should work, and I think we'll have our JavaScript now, which we don't really need, but anyways, we can go into app controllers, application controller, which is like our base controller for all of them. And we can add a before action, say record request with Ray, something
Hmm.
like that. And we can have a method named the same thing, and we can say Ray, hello world, something like that. And it should, if everything goes correctly, um, it should work. But let's see. So did we have to, with Ruby Ray, do any sort of? Can't remember if we had to require that.
Well, this is actually an issue thing
Okay.
that I have on there. That I also saw that I have to require Ray every time that I use it, and that isn't really particular good DX.
Right. And that is probably because, let's see. Do, do, do. We can probably fix that pretty easily. So what happens is automatically, because the name of the gem is called Ruby Ray,
Hmm.
when bundler loads the gem, it's going to look for lib Ruby Ray, but we only have Ray
Hmm.
in there, so we'd have to require this directly. So if we add a little file in to the package, then we should be able to require it automatically and then save that step. So that's definitely something we overlooked. But it's much more obvious now that we're like not just testing Ray directly, we're testing it in another app.
Yeah.
So actually, one fun thing we can do is when we install our gems, they get installed to some folder, and we can
Hmm.
say bundle open Ruby Ray, and that will actually open up an editor wherever that is installed and the version that we're using. So we should be able to,
Just change it there. But
yeah.
but
Um,
this isn't like a repository or something like that. This is just like the files, and if you
yeah, this
uh
is my copy of it.
yeah, got it.
Um, and then we can fiddle with it here. And then once we know that it works right, we can then, add that to the actual gem. And you can also set up the gem to load from a file on your computer too, so that
Yeah.
it's not installed inside the Ruby folders, and you can work on it a bit easier. Um, but maybe we'll get to that, and we'll just require Ray automatically. So maybe we'll go up here and do require Ray, and we'll see if that does the trick for us. And it did, it seems like. And if we go to Ray, we get
Oh
our
yeah.
hello world. So that's good. And this is like, you could use Ray without any Rails integration, which is kind of nice.
Hmm.
But it's much better if we have something you can just turn on and off.
Yeah.
So what for Laravel on a request, what stuff do you include in the Ray
Uh,
uh, for
let,
like a request?
let me take a look.
Because
Request command, show requests, request watcher. Pa-pam, pa-pam. I'm looking for the payload. Ah, yeah, here it is. You know what? I'll share my screen for a bit so I can show you this.
okay.
Doing a little bit of window management with the full screen stuff. Share screen, this screen. So what we are sending to the to Ray whenever a request is a table payload. And I
Okay.
actually don't know if I already added that to the base version of Ray, but it's very simple. It just accepts like a hash, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And it just the IP address, and we get the IP address of Ray. So the URI, the method, control, action, middleware that's on there, headers, payload. And basically, we could just start with like the IP address and URI and just add some things later if we already get this working. And I
Right.
think that the table payload is also a very simple one. I think it is just values that get sent. And label, it's optional. It's set to table. So
Okay.
I think for request, actually, I should add. Ah, no, it's added here. I add request, so we have like a request label next to all of this. That's basically what we have.
Okay.
Let me move this to somewhere else and bring you back on.
Yeah. So maybe since we've got like this JSON for now, because it doesn't look like we have tables yet.
No,
Um,
I think JSON is good enough. I can refactor it to table later.
yeah. So let's do the to JSON and then pass in some data for that. So
Yeah.
we'll say array to JSON, and then we can do like the request URL. What were some of the other ones? And actually, I noticed that you had the time for the request, and we could do it after action so that we have some of the other information like the response code and stuff. So this would run after it's all completed.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, I got duration on here. Response codes, memory used.
Response
Uh,
code, duration, memory used,
Headers, IP address.
headers, IP address. Okay. And maybe we'll do a couple of these because I know some of these are pretty easy to grab. Like IP address is I think request.ip, and request.headers I believe should give us that. And I think there is. Let me pull these docs up. There's a response object that we can probably use. So response code, we can try that and see if response.code works. And maybe I'll comment these out for now, and we'll just see if this will give us a request. Okay. So did I put a... looks like it's hanging. So did I put a binding IRB somewhere? Oh, stack level too deep. Okay. So we've got some infinite loop in there from one of these. Maybe we'll do or comment out the response code and see if that was related there. I'm not entirely sure.
Seems something else.
Yeah. Well, let's just see if we can do the very basics here with the URL to JSON, and maybe it's something related to that as well. So I'm gonna have to kill your server because it's hanging. And then we'll restart it back up and see if this works now. Okay. That worked. We got our URL.
Okay.
So something we did, we can probably go through and add, and that might be a request.headers, for example. That might have to be converted to a hash or something. So let me try enabling a couple others and see if those work. So now we get our response code, our IP address, those work, and it could have just been the headers. Because some of these objects in the request reference a whole bunch of other stuff. And so, yeah,
it looks like a little bit too large.
Yeah, they can be pretty giant. And if they reference themselves or whatever, it just goes infinitely. So it looks like that might be have to grab the headers in a different way, which is fine. So we can restart, and we'll just leave it at that, I guess, and use that as our simple example here. So our URL, response code, and IP address, and all those log just fine. So that's good.
Yeah.
So that's like, the very basics of what you would do to integrate this with Rails directly, but it's nice if you can just build something to automatically do this for you. So we can go, as our next step is go create a new gem. So let me...
You know what? I'll already create a repo for this behind the scenes.
Okay, perfect. Did you use the Rails plugin command to do that?
I think last time you did it, and I just pushed it what you had up to a repository.
Okay, because I was going to mention there is a Rails plugin new command that you can use, and we could say Ray Rails, or let's see, you had Ruby Ray.
Ruby Ray, sure.
Should we do Rails Ray?
Yeah.
Okay. And this, I don't know if doing underscores or hyphens matters. One of those will automatically capitalize the word, but we'll do this. And so this ends up actually creating some Rails specific code, and it includes that railtie that I was mentioning earlier.
Oh yeah.
So we go into Rails Ray, and we can take a look at what it includes. So it comes with a command to run your test that will load the Rails library and stuff. And then I believe the test folder comes with a dummy Rails app that you can include. And so you have like a fake Rails app that you can include your library into and run tests against it. So kind of those examples that you had, we could actually put those into this app and actually run those as commands, which is kind of cool. So for the most part, it's similar. So we have called this one Rails Ray, and so with the hyphen, it creates Rails as a folder and then ray.rb in there. We'll probably need to go back and do the same kind of thing with Ruby Ray.
Yeah.
But this will set that up inside of the Rails module and Ray module, and then it will include the version and the railtie file, which doesn't really do anything other than inherit from railties. So this, we can go and add initializer stuff in here. So for example, active support on load is an example of what we would do here. So for let's say initializer ray dot active action controller, and these can kind of be arbitrary names. You just don't want them to conflict. But this will run this block of code whenever Rails loads this railtie, and then we can write a line of code in there to actually say, hey, when active record or action controller is loaded, we can do something with that. And so, for example, we might write a little module that we would include that that code that we wrote here into your application controller. So let's do that. Let's create let's go in here and we'll say module logging, something like that, action controller logging. And then basically when Rails is loading files in development, it'll do it automatically when it boots, but then if you edit a file, it will reload the file. So we have to do this this active support on load monitor so that whenever action controller gets loaded, which could be 100 times in development, that we always include your action controller logging module. So include action controller logging, and we will do our extend active support concern included do, and inside of here we can define our after action like so, and then our method. So we'll grab this, paste that in, and this will be added as an instance method. This gets the included block gets run on the class level, and the railtie will set that up so it's loaded every single time that action controller is loaded. So it'll just include this module every time, just so it's always there.
Got it.
So our dependency for Ray, we just add a dependency into our gem spec. So if I could type.
Yep.
Ruby Ray. And then we can specify a version. If we don't, it'll install the latest version, which is okay. I'm going to remove the to-dos so it doesn't complain. And then we'll get rid of this and these to-dos.
Now I have a general question about this.
Yeah.
So we're adding stuff to a controller in the Rails app. Does every request go to a controller, or are there like other ways that a request can go through an app? In the Laravel app, you can get stopped by middleware, or not use like a controller at all.
Yeah, you could, and that would be like a deeper integration that you would do. Rails is built on top of a library called Rack, and it's what handles the request and then eventually gives that to Rails. And Rack has all the middlewares. And
Oh, yeah.
so you can run in your Rails folder, Rails middleware, and that will print out all of the Rack middlewares that are being used. So,
Yeah.
trying to resize this window, but
Well, it's readable enough. I can read it.
yeah. So similar to that, you would probably want to, include stuff that's Rails specific for, like we're doing for the controllers, to include some more Rails things.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also build a rack middleware that would just work in any application, and it wouldn't have to be Rails. So it could be one of the other Ruby frameworks like Sinatra or Hanami, and it would be able
Yeah.
to work with those too. But I think you're probably going to get the middlewares for Rack are generic, so they don't know anything about Rails. They just see the request, and that is great. But if you want to include some Rails specific things, then
This is
you'll
the way
need
to
to do
go.
something more like this. So
Yeah.
you'll probably need to end up doing both so that you have the ability to do, more Rails specific things or whatever. But it's kind of up to you on how
Yeah.
you want to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, that's clear.
so first things first, we need to require Ray here. So we've got that required. When we fix the Ruby Ray gem, that won't even be needed because I guess it will be in a gem. In Bundler, we'll automatically require the gems, but if you have a dependency in your gem, you do need to require it explicitly.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't mind that because this is not what like a user of the package will have to do. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So in theory, if we didn't miss anything, we should be able to go into our Rails app. We will shut that down. We can go into its gem file and replace Ruby Ray with Rails Ray, and then go and run bundle to install it. And this actually, it will need to be a relative location. So I think mine's code Rails Ray because that is not up on Ruby Gems yet. Source code URI. We need to fix that in the gem spec. We'll just grab the GitHub URL from up here and set those.
Mm-hmm.
And there it goes. Now we're going. Okay.
Cool.
So we should be able to load our Rails app now. And I'll pull up Ray and the browser. And if we're lucky, there we go. So we didn't have to configure anything in our Rails app now. And it just works. Like it'll work automatically. You can't opt out of it at the moment, but we can add configuration so you can turn it off and whatever. But it just works, which is great.
This is already quite nice. I think for like, how long are you busy? I think 20 minutes or something. Are we already here? That's good.
Yeah. It's not, as long as you understand sort of these patterns to hook into Rails correctly, it is really easy to add functionality in there, which is good. So the next step's probably to do something a little bit different, like we can monitor the SQL queries. So let's do that. We will grab the SQL active record event, and we'll send that over, probably with JSON as well.
There's like a separate payload for that.
Okay.
I'll look it up and send you a screenshot via the Twitter DM so you can take a look at it.
We probably don't have that yet in in here, do we?
Yeah, indeed. It isn't there. So yeah, let's do just a JSON thing. I'll add the query one later.
Yeah, that'll be
If
the
yeah,
easiest option probably.
yeah.
So, really, this is probably all we have to do. So, initializer array active record do, paste this in, and then change this subscribe event to SQL dot active record. And then we'll have our name, start, finish, unique ID, and data. And we can probably just say array to JSON and include whatever data that we want out of there. Now let's go down to the examples here, though, and we'll take a look at. I'm assuming this stuff is the data, or maybe it's just different here. So it looks like some of these, like they have different amount of arguments. Like this action controller one has name, start, finished, unique ID. And I was gonna look and see like, if there are different sets of arguments for them or whatever, because they have this args, which is just an array of everything, and then they convert they're converting it to an object. And you might also pass a block that accepts only one argument and will receive the event object. Okay. Well, let's just see what happens. So we can grab that and let's just do name started as started, finished is finished, and what was the other ones? Let me close this. Unique ID and data. Unique ID and data is data. And we'll see if that works or not. So one of the things that is a little bit annoying with creating a gem like this is that we'll have to restart our Rails app in order to pick up those changes from there. So we'll need to restart, and that will reload the initializers and everything from scratch. And we haven't.
There isn't like a watch command or something that automatically restarts.
Yeah. There is, I think there's a way to set that up to reload some of that code, but you have to hook into the reloader stuff. So that's an improvement we can make. But yeah, as you can see, it's doing an infinite loop. It looks like just calling as JSON over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it looks like it eventually stopped here. So this, I'm guessing it's this data object that is causing the trouble there. So we will kill that and restart and see if that fixes our trouble. Looks like it. And we got a ton of these SQL active record, unique ID, and the request. So we're seeing the database queries. We do need to look at those docs and see if I'm guessing the data has this information in it. So we may need to pull out some of that stuff out of there. And it might have been like the code to take the connection, and these binds may have just gotten into an infinite loop. So we'll try and grab the name and the SQL query out of there and do that.
Yeah, in the PHP world itself, I would imagine that if you try to dump something like a connection, it wouldn't work because you have like special resources in there. So I guess in the Ruby world, it's more or less the same thing.
Yeah, probably. It gets tough because you have an object with variables and other associations to other objects, and how
Yeah.
do you go through all of those and dump them? That's
Yeah.
not a super easy way of doing things. A lot of times they'll just convert those things to a string, and then you'll get just a weird, like this string example here.
Yeah.
You'll just get this printed out, which is
Yeah.
fine, but it's not particularly useful, or it only goes like one level deep, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll try this to put our query information inside of there, and we'll see if that works. Restart, and we'll pull up Ray.
Oh yeah,
Hey, it
I
did.
see queries there. That's
Yeah.
good.
So we get um the name of the query, so like the announcements table loading from there, and the schema, which is like basically Rails asking the database, hey, what are all the columns in these tables? So Rails is kind of initializing in that in those schema queries.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have a name, as it's looking at our database migrations to see if you have run all your migrations or not. And if we refresh the page, it should be a simpler, just the one query that we ran, which was checking to see if there were any announcements to display next to this what's new link up there. And I'm sure if we go into, for example, sign up and we create a user and submit that, we should see, it looks like we got an error there,
User
but
create. Yeah.
yep, user exists. So we're checking our validations to see if that email is already in the database. Then we get user create, inserting into the database, and our transaction to actually commit that and save it. So it looks like all of that works, which is awesome.
That's it's amazing. I
Yeah.
I I'm very happy that it's possible to do like in Rails. I know that yeah in Laravel we're very lucky that there are like good hooks in there, but there are
Hmm.
PHP frameworks where this is very hard to do. But I'm
Oh,
glad
I
that
bet.
Rails that it's kind of easy or
Yeah. Yeah.
straightforward.
Yeah. There's um I'll have to share with you some of the, for example, Honey Badger is a app for tracking errors and uptime and stuff, and you can use this in PHP too. But they're popular in Ruby and Rails, and they have some interesting stuff. So let's look up Honey Badger Ruby and grab their gem on Ruby Gems or on GitHub, and you can poke around and see kind of how they do things, because this will be their, their Ruby version, and I can't remember if there's a separate. Oh, there you go. There's a Laravel gem.
Yeah,
Um, the Rails one. Mm, doo, 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 doo.
they got lots.
I wonder if it's in the. No, yeah, I don't know if they have a separate gem. I can't remember if they have Honey Badger Rails as a separate gem. Doesn't look like it.
Hmm.
Sometimes some of the places have a Ruby specific one and a Rails one, but see this, when you load up Honey Badger, it may check for example, is Rails defined, and if it is, they will require the Rails integration. So if you wanted to build the Ray gem and the Rails version together, you could
Hmm.
do that like they're doing here. So they have it with like that other framework I mentioned, Sinatra.
Yeah.
They look and see, hey, does Sinatra exist? And if it does, then they'll automatically include that. So it's kind of up to you if you want to manage two libraries, or just put it all together. Um,
Hmm. I think I think on the second item on my priority list is do as much the same as like in the PHP world, so
mhm.
that uh, maintenance gets easier. But
Yep.
on
Yep.
number one is do as what is done in that ecosystem. Because if I need help, then it's much easier for people that know it
Definitely.
to help me.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter which way you go on that. I see a lot of places do both, where Honey Badger will have it all in one, and then
Separate one as
I
well.
know Airbrake or some company has separate gems for each, and it just might require a little extra. Release 2 versions, one of each gem if you got to make an update or something. Um,
Yeah.
and it just comes down to managing those. But it's interesting to like read through some of this stuff too, because they're going to load the um what was the file name that they load? Init Rails. So Honey Badger init Rails. And you'll see here they have the same kind of initializers. They're inserting middlewares, so they're doing it with middlewares, just to monitor for errors and stuff. And they have configuration and stuff set up in another initializer as well. So they're keeping track of like the Rails root directory and so on, so that you can go through and filter out stuff if you needed to. So this will be interesting to look at, if you want to
Yeah.
dig into some of that stuff. Maybe another thing we could do is like integrate with active job, which is our background jobs, and you could keep track of those.
Yeah, that's also an interesting one.
Yeah, let's see. I wonder what the difference is between perform start, queue adapter, processing the job. I don't have really any descriptions on the difference between these perform start and perform. So yeah, I guess that will take a little research to figure out what the difference is. But we could keep track of when you queue up a new job, for example, and that might be useful. So really, the same concept applies, where you would just add another initializer for that, and similar to this, we will just look for the we'll do enqueue active job, and I guess the data will be the data. So this one we may want the adapter. I don't know if this will be an object or not. Data adapter, maybe we'll call toString on it, just to be safe. And the job, data job toString, and we'll see what happens with that. So we'll need to also generate a job. So we can create Rails generate job, example job, and then we can maybe go and use the Rails console to run that and see if it shows up in Ray.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on with the generators hung? Strange. See if Spring is. Try that again and see if Spring is causing trouble. Oh, we have a syntax error. 935. Yes, need an end. That is probably my fault. There we go.
Yes.
Okie dokie. So all these should also work in the Rails console. So if we were to, I guess I'll have to move windows around so we can see Ray while I'm doing this. But yeah, if we do example job dot
Dispatch, perform.
We have perform and perform later, and they can take arguments. There we go. So it printed that out, but I don't know what kind of objects those are. So let's do finding.irb. And we'll try that again, and we'll poke around now. Oh, that didn't. Oh, we probably have to. Sometimes you have to run Spring stop or just turn off Spring. Spring is a library that will like cache files in development, so they're faster.
Yeah.
So sometimes it gets in the way, and you just need to turn it off, and it will refresh the files that way, or
Okay.
get rid of the cache. So let's take a look at data. Yeah, so for example, adapter is an object, which would be probably not great. Let's say data adapter. Maybe there's a name. Nope. Let's see if in Q. So maybe what we do is we say dot class dot name here, and we can print that out so we'd see that it's the sidekick adapter, for example. So there's multiple background job processors, and sidekick's probably the most popular one.
Yeah.
And this will be at least a way for us to print out something useful there instead of just the comment that we had or the hash symbol. And then for the job, I'm guessing really our job would be interesting to have the class name and maybe the arguments or something for that. So we could do maybe the job is a hash with a name, and it's got the class name,
Mm-hmm.
and then arguments is an array that we create, a renderer, and it looks like it's arguments there. I'm wondering if we're gonna have to do so. Let me set job to a variable, and then we'll have job dot arguments map to string, so that we can convert all those arguments to a string, just so Ray can not
Okay.
go infinitely down the rabbit hole if we passed in an object or something crazy.
This is also good for me to see an example of how that should be done.
Yeah. So a good example we can do is take like perform later with, let's just do number as 1 2 3 4 5, and we should see in Ray number 1 2 3 4 5, which is
Yeah.
good, but it was a hash, so it converted that to a string, and ideally you'd take those and convert them to um, print them out as nested arguments or something,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's okay. And then we can even do other more complicated things, like say we're going to pass in a user and we'll grab the last user out of the database. And that actually ran all the SQL queries, and we saw those load up.
Yeah.
And then we saw the user. Now the user just printed out as a hash symbol there.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'll be something to fix. But if we take a user object and call to string, it will look like this. And it looks like it's just losing the greater than and less than contents there. So something's parsing that out in this that'll need fixing. But
Yeah.
that's a good starting place for monitoring jobs, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and fixing the properties, that's something that I can certainly research and just fix a little bit on my own.
Right.
But,
Yep.
well, what I'm also interesting is in how to do this, because that's still like a secret to me, is how you can just dynamically start and stop these kind of watchers, so that in my application code I can say, hey, give me all the jobs starting from this point and stop it at this point.
Yeah, right. So there is. I played with this before. Can probably look up my code if we need to. Active support notifications has a let's see, methods sort object dot methods. Was it notifier backend maybe? Yeah. So this is similar to a single or undefined method backend. Okay. So let me check because I just recently played around with this. So in the pagem, I have a test for the webhooks delegator, which uses the same functionality. There's an unsubscribe method that you can use. So you could use that to turn off the subscription there.
Yeah.
And you can also check if it's listening or not, which is nice if you want to just check and see if it's turned on or off. So really, the thing would probably be that you would have a method call or something that so your configuration would check in here like if ray dot active record is true, then
Mm-hmm.
we'll go and initialize and run this line of code. And then to like turn it off, we'll just unsubscribe from that event. And I think it's as simple as saying like unsubscribe here. So we'll try that. And we can pull up array and make a query and make sure that user.first doesn't send anything over anymore. So that's how we
Yeah.
can turn it off. And that is super handy. So we can go and move this code around basically.
Yeah.
So we can have like start active record,
Mm-hmm.
and this would be where we would put that, and then stop active record would do the opposite. So just unsubscribe from there. And one cool thing we can do is so we'll just say I think we could just say start active record like so. And I believe that would find this method. So let's try that. Stop. Nope. Okay, so it needs ray dot. Rails ray module. Oh yeah, it needs to be a class method. So self dot and self dot.
Well, what
There we
is
go.
that self? Because I was thinking like we're just adding functions to Ray, but why is that self needed?
So a module is kind of works like a class where if you have a self dot method name, that is something where you can call Rails ray dot start active record.
Mm-hmm.
But if you did not have the self in there, you couldn't call this method. So it's kind of making it a class method. And then there can be instance methods inside of a module as well, just like you would in a class, but you generally can't access them the same way
Yeah.
in a module.
Yeah.
So if we pull up our first user, we get our logs, so that all works, and we can call Rails ray stop active record and query that user. Oh,
It's still there.
yeah, undefined method call for nil class. So what did we? We never called unsubscribe. That's an obvious mistake there. Okie dokie. So user.first loads up everything, stop active record, and we're back in business. So that's turned off. And then we can turn it on, start active record, and user.first logs now. So that's as simple as it is to, start and stop those. One cool thing is you could do something like with active record logging
Hmm.
and give this a block. You can simply say start active record, yield to run the block, and then stop afterwards. And there's a couple ways of handling blocks. Yield will do exactly that, and it'll work just fine. But you can also capture the block into a variable if you want. And so this is kind of cool because if we run Rails now, my cat is wanting snacks.
Like the last time.
Yep, he always does. Okay, so let's turn off logging, and then we will query the user, make sure it's off, and it is. And then we can do Rails array with active record logging, do, and then user.first. And only inside of this block will the logging work. So if we did that right with active record logging, did I call that right? Yes, but did we? Maybe we didn't. Spring stop. That could be.
Yeah, just refresh everything.
As usual, yeah. I gotta turn off Spring completely and then, okay, so it should be on. Okay. We
Yeah.
will stop it and then we can run our block and it works.
Hey.
And then if we were to use user.first, it's off.
Shouldn't be anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's a really handy pattern to kind of, decorate some code with some functionality that way.
Yeah. I actually have this in the Laravel application as well, where you can just give like the function show queries a closure, and only the queries within the closure would get displayed. This is very similar. So this is pretty nice that you added this without me mentioning that we have that too.
I think I saw that in your doc somewhere. Yeah, because
Okay.
that is a very, very common situation where you want just this piece of code that you want to keep track of, but you don't want, if you turn this on for everything and you add something where you're recording the requests and emails and jobs and queries, you're going to just spam yourself with a bunch of stuff, and you often more want, is this piece working? And then you can turn on the logging for that. And you could do this where you have like with all logging, and you could turn on, the job logging, the query logging, and all of those, and then turn them right off after you ran your block.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now there's one more thing, and I don't know if it's easy or not. So stop me right with my tracks if it is super hard to do. So I saw that because you're using the self dot methods, you have to call array in a different way, right? You have to call it on the class, right, and not on the method. I wonder if we can make it call on the method, because on the PHP side of things, or on the Laravel side of things, everything works just on the function. You don't have to think about it. Should I call this like on the class or on the thing? I don't know if that is doable.
Yeah. And there's, similar to the way we wrote Ray, was it just added a method. So for example, if we wanted to pull this out, we could have that as just a a method that's globally available,
Mm-hmm.
and we could tell this Rails Ray start active record,
Yeah, then
and
that is
then
statically. Yeah. Yeah.
so then if we were to do that, I think that would do the trick. So let's query our user. It's on. We'll go to this, and we will, or I guess we want to turn it off first. And we
Yeah.
haven't renamed that yet, but we'll go up here and we'll say with active record logging. Oh, what is it doing? Do, and it's on, and user.first should be off. So really you just define the method outside of a module and it's available, which is
Yeah.
nice. There are some things like, for example, when we include the action controller logging here, we can
Mm-hmm.
add methods to the classes. So if you're working inside of a class like we do with our controllers, so our announcements controller, our index action, if you wanted to make a special version of Ray available here, or add some other methods like a shortcut to make a table payload or something.
Yeah.
You could add those and include them through a module into whatever piece of Rails that you want. Um, but if you need globally available stuff, you just do that. Don't put it inside of a module like we did here, and you're good to go. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Got
and
it.
and this should be available in your controllers and your views and anywhere,
And is that
I
seen
think.
as like a dirty thing to do? Like in PHP it's called polluting the global namespace with functions. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it can be. Yeah, it gets to be mostly a problem, I think, if you have naming of stuff that is
very
too,
generic or
yeah,
something.
if it's too generic. But if you include like Ray in the function names or something, like,
Yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
be obvious that it's Ray specific there. So you're unlikely to ever accidentally override someone else's method that way, and that would be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, in general, I would probably go and the benefit of doing it outside globally though is like your Rails console here, we can use that method right there, and it gets tricky because the Rails console it's not a request, and it's not a model, and it's not a job or anything. It's just its own thing. So
Yeah.
you don't a lot of times, like, people want to use a URL helper for like the root path. And if you
Hmm.
try that, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, because you're in a console. You're not in a controller and a request or anything. So it doesn't know what to do. So you get a lot more friendly when you're doing a global method like this, because everybody can use it anywhere, which is nice. So it depends on, I think it makes sense for Ray to have functionality like this outside.
Yeah.
Um, because that's kind of the whole point of it, right? Like, you want to
Hmm.
make this easy for debugging and stuff. And
Yeah.
also you may have, you may not, I don't know if you recommend, but like, don't include Ray in production, like only in development, that sort of thing, because you're not going to want to use it probably in production. Maybe, but then like if it only adds in development, then it's not as big of a deal either,
Mm.
or whatever. So
Well, it's funny that you mentioned production because yeah, we've been working a little bit on that.
oh, cool.
Um, so for what the Laravel package and all the integrations do for now is if it detects is if it's in production mode, then it won't send anything.
Okay.
Um, and the idea is that should you leave like a array call in and deploy that,
Yep.
it doesn't break anything. It just won't do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But right now we're like adding functionality um, where we actually will be able to send those things to the Ray application, so you can use Ray to debug production
Oh, that's
stuff.
cool.
So that
Yeah.
opens a lot of doors there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you have to run a hosted service to pull that off then? Because you got to post those messages to some
Yeah,
public URL.
those will get posted via a port, and so I think it's now our default port where we're just posting things to, and on a well configured server, your firewall will just stop all of that. But what we will do with the application is we will open up an SSH tunnel and just let everything from the port go through SSH through the app. So it's perfectly
Yeah,
secure to
I
do
like it.
that.
I like it. Yeah.
Because we've known that we have like these little problems in production as well, and we wish we want to send like a ray thing to the code so it can send us back all the values, and
Mhm.
we got it working. So still need to polish it a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's really cool because there are a lot of times when something it just happens in production where somebody sends a request that doesn't make any sense and you don't know
Mhm,
how it happened, and it's hard to reproduce because your logs may not have been thorough enough. And then if you
mhm.
have something like this, you can watch it and you can see exactly what happened and
Yeah, indeed.
recreate it and fix it.
Yeah, I actually don't almost dare to say it, but I think that every developer or a PHP developer in the beginning of the career, if you ever got in such a situation, you would FTP to to the server and just add like little echo statements in there for
Uh-huh.
like nobody
Mhm.
sees this. It's just me for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I log it to the browser and then I put it away. And
Yep.
it's basically a better version of that.
Yeah. Oh, I've done that before. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just it can be really tough to debug stuff in production. So
Hmm.
that's a really cool use case. I like it. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I'll let you know when we have like a version of that available. I think it's only a
Yeah.
couple of weeks away before we get that stable.
Cool. Awesome. I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
So you'll probably want to go through and um probably just write a lot of methods like this.
Yeah.
Uh like right now we're always forcing the requests to be turned on, and this is maybe not what we would do, um because potentially let me pull up the
I think
uh
every one of those watchers would be off by default. You'd have to put them on. Uh,
sure.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because I'm trying to think if do. Yeah, well, there's some for caching here, so you could check for any cache hits or misses or whatever. um Oh, that's an interesting one. Like keeping track of any deprecated stuff that you might have. I think Rails just added a feature to crash or raise an error when you call a deprecated method, so you can
Hmm.
test your deprecations for upcoming Rails versions and like have failing tests when that happens, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's
Because
nice.
I was just thinking, like the process action. um, you get your controller, your actions, your params, headers, format, method, path, and you get the request. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
could rewrite that pretty easily to replace this little thing with a subscribe, just like we did for the rest of them. So the
Yeah.
benefit there is you can keep everything consistent. I think that would be really useful because I
Yeah.
know that I'm pretty sure this is what you see in the Rails logs. So when we have, we'll go back up to somewhere before when we saw requests in Rails. This completed 200 OK in 25 milliseconds. Your views took 19 milliseconds and database was 0.1 milliseconds. I think it's using something like this where you can see the views and the database runtimes to generate that message. So it's just collecting all that information and printing it out. And you could collect the same information and just send it over to Ray instead. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. This is
cool.
already a great starting point, Chris. I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I can do a lot now. I guess just like when you helped with the base Ruby version, like showing me all the basics so I can work on this. I think I got the basics of this one now.
cool. Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna. I don't know. We could probably do this right now if you wanted, but I was gonna say we should try to fix that.
Import thing or
Yeah,
require thing. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's do that.
So, um, require paths lib. So we're gonna need just a Ruby. Oops. On keyboard shortcut. Ruby / ray.rb, I believe. And here, buddy.
Another guest appearance.
Yep. If he does not get his attention, he starts to go around and knock stuff off tables to get your attention. So yeah, the way that bundler works is your library name, if it has a hyphen in it, like Ruby Ray does, then it's going to treat that as separate folders. But if you have an underscore, it would just treat it as an underscored file name. And so bundler will look for Ruby Ray .rb, and then we can require relative / ray probably, and that would, I would imagine, do the trick. So let's go back to, let's close Rails Ray, and we'll go to our example file, and we'll say gem ray path is code Ruby Ray. And now, and I need to make this bigger. So we're just basically, bundler will find this file, start here. It'll go up a directory and then find ray.rb and then do all of our normal requires. So that should, out of the box, make Ray available anytime. So now we'll go back and we'll run bundle. Ruby Ray does not exist because I called it Ray in my folder name. Let's actually just move that. So move Ray to Ruby Ray. We'll run bundle, and then we should find it. Cannot find gem Ray. So this is because of, didn't I make something, or the source does not contain any versions of Ray. Let's see. Let me close that as well, and we'll open up Ruby Ray. And our gem spec may need, I can't remember if there was a specific thing in here for, doesn't look like it. Ruby Ray.rb, and maybe we could just do a require Ray here as well. Nope. Ray and source. Ruby Ray. Source does not. Maybe that's because of the name of the gem as well, or something. Libre version. What are we looking for? Um. Hmm. Wonder if there's any way to get like a trace or something here. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Maybe verbose. Oh, install -v. Okay, that's a little better. Resolver and source at Ruby Ray. Good question. Not sure entirely where that's looking. What's nice is we can probably just open this code as well and just see what it's doing in there, like
Mhm.
which file name it's looking for or whatever. But that might take a little bit of poking around to see. Because in theory, I think this should be what we need, but I'm not.
It's probably something very small, I think.
Yeah, probably is. Um, yeah, verify gem file dependencies are found. Maybe we can pull up the bundler GitHub and find that archived. It is now in Ruby gems. Okay, so we'll look for this method and just poke around and see what's up. So this one was in line 300, 332. So requirements, if name is bundler, skip it. Then it comes down to raise gem not found. So if and the if else source requirements and base name. So something in there is not quite matching up. So the base, you've requested name requirement. I'm not sure. And it may be something like we need another file or something. A lot
It
of this will come down to probably just I sometimes just throw a binding IRB inside of here
yeah,
and
to
poke
see
around the variables and see what's going on. Yes.
it does say that it can't find like a gem named Ray, but the gem is named Ruby Ray, right? Maybe,
Yeah. Couldn't find gem Ray in source Ruby Ray.
but the gem name is also I don't actually know. Is the gem name Ray or Ruby Ray? Its spec name here is Ruby Ray.
Oh, you know what? I bet you we could probably change Ruby Ray.gemspec, and that might be what we need. Nope.
Nope, still that error.
Huh. Yeah, because I wonder.
Why is it? How does it get to the name Ray as like the gem name? Is what I wonder then.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, aha.
Ah, yeah,
I
here.
just did it wrong. This probably, yeah. So, and I wonder if that should probably still be rubyray.gemspec anyways. Um, so that probably is.
This is already other output, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So
Cool.
that worked. Let's run our Rails console and see if we can run Ray. What up? There we go. Cool.
Hey,
So that doesn't
fantastic.
require or doesn't need the require anymore. So that is good. Now it makes me kind of wonder, like, if that gem spec should have been Ruby Ray the whole time. I feel like it probably should have been, so it matches with the name of the gem. But I'm not. These are things like the internals of bundler. Like, it figures these names out somehow. I've
Yeah,
never really looked into how it does. You just follow the pattern and assume that
yeah.
it works. So it's interesting that the .gem spec, it may just look for
It's
a
something
.gem
gem
spec,
specific.
and it
Yeah,
doesn't care what it's called,
yeah,
except for the name inside of it. So
yeah,
those maybe don't have to match or something, and that could have been why. And we
yeah.
can, I guess, just test it. Move that to ray.gemspec and run bundle. And if we run ray, works.
Yes.
So yeah, it must not care what the name of the gemspec file is.
Yeah,
Probably for consistency, it's good to call it rubyray.gemspec, but
yeah.
that at least works. And now we can take this and we can, update the Ruby gem. I'll send you a pull request for this, and then we
Cool.
can merge that. And then now you don't have to require Ray anymore, which will be a big improvement.
Yeah,
I
that's much, much better, I think.
Yeah, it's always so annoying when a gem doesn't do that properly. There's been
Mhm.
a handful that don't, and I'm always like, really, guys, just fix it. So yeah, let's go do that. We can just do that right now.
Yeah, sure.
Think I have my. I
I
guess
think
I
I think you can actually just pull to master or
yeah.
main. I think you
Or
have the
wrong
right permissions.
wrong folder. There we go. We'll go to Ruby Ray. Um. Do, do, fix gem require, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or bundler.
to be honest, I'm one of those developers that does like whip commits the whole time.
I know what you mean, yeah. And I guess we should we'll add in a note here for fix required to automatically or fix
Yeah,
required for bundler or something.
yeah, that's already good enough, I guess.
Yeah. So we'll add that and uh buddy. He's like, you're not paying attention to me.
Or maybe he just wants to get heard in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Right, the transatlantic cat.
Yeah, I'll just go and push that up to
Yeah,
master
sure.
for you. And then you can cut a new release whenever you are ready and
Yeah,
we'll be good to go. Cool.
yeah, pretty nice, man. Pretty
Awesome.
cool.
Made some good progress.
Yeah, indeed. I think I'll take one of the next couple of days to work a little bit on the Rails integration to polish that all out with like the right payloads and stuff, and try to really create one or two of those methods that work really well. And yeah, maybe I'll nag you then, like, Chris, is this good enough? You think? And then I'll
Yeah.
just continue on the next. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if this is ready, then it's really usable, I think, for Ruby and Rails developers.
I think so. Yeah. Because you'll be able to hook into a lot of the, basic functionality there. And, you just turn it on and you don't have to configure anything at all and it's already wired up. So that will
Yeah,
be awesome.
yeah.
I think that will be really cool. Yeah, one of the interesting things will be to figure out what is causing that. If you have an object and you call toString, it
Mm-hmm.
just shows up as the hash symbol. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what's causing the greater than and less than contents to just
Things.
disappear.
Yeah.
And actually, that could be something that it needs to be HTML escaped, possibly, because I
Ah, yeah.
remember that might just be treating it as an HTML tag, which is why it's not
Yeah.
showing up. So
Yeah.
that could be, and that would be an interesting thing to fix. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
In the Laravel integration, I already had some of those bugs to fix. So if it's something similar, I'm pretty sure I'll get it right.
Yeah, you've seen all these before.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a little bit. How do you say that in English? In Dutch, it's something like you've already had this disease. You already know it. You know.
Yep, yep. Totally,
It's a
totally.
little bit like that.
Yep,
So yeah,
absolutely.
Chris. Yeah, I greatly appreciate you taking the time for this again.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, maybe also I should mention this because I don't know if you saw it, but I recreated one of your gems yesterday
I
in
did.
PHP, the prefixed one.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. So anybody that doesn't know, the like Stripe API, well, all of the IDs for users and charges and payments were they're prefixed. So when you're using Stripe, you have like a million different IDs, and it you can lose track of is this for a customer or charge or whatever. But with that prefix, it's super simple. And then I was impressed to see how fast you made a Laravel version of that. That was awesome.
yeah, it really wasn't that hard, you know. I think just the idea, just let's do this. That's the most important. That's the most important bit.
Yep, yep. Yeah, because once you get the basics done, someone will use it and find a bug, and you'll be able to polish it up a lot easier. You just
Yeah,
have to get the foundations ready, and that's
yeah.
all you need. And usually that doesn't take very long.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And personally, I also get motivated if I can just use it myself. And this is so I'm building like a new version of an API, and I can immediately use it. So
Perfect.
it was like a
Yeah,
given, like, hey, Chris is doing this. Oh yeah, let's do this too. Yeah, this is a good idea. So thanks for
yeah,
that as well.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Because I saw I published that, and then I saw your tweet about it, and I was like, that was fast.
yeah, a couple of hours, and I thought, yeah, just let's do something. Do something smaller. I'm working on like these big ass projects now, and sometimes it's
Yeah,
just fun to just, hey, I'm going to do something small, isolated that I can just make work and polish in like a couple of hours, so I get my reward feeling a bit, and then back into the trenches for the big thing. This was
exactly.
it's like a little gift for myself there as well. So
I feel the exact same way. Yep.
I guess these things are the same in all ecosystems.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes you just need something you can build in a couple hours. It's like those projects that you can do in a weekend. Those are really
Yeah,
fulfilling.
yeah, indeed. That's like you get the feeling back. I'm a god. You know, I
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of working on something for 6 months and you're like, "Is this
yeah,
ever gonna be done?"
yeah. Yeah, you're working for 6 months and you show your girlfriend or a peer that isn't in IT. What have you done? Yeah, I can't show anything. It's just code, but
Yeah. Yeah.
some letters
It,
in the
like, kinda
terminal.
works. Yeah,
Yeah,
or you show them and you're like, "You just click on this," and then it breaks, and then you're like,
yeah,
yeah."
yeah. Good programmer. Yeah,
Oh, yes. I think that is the same for everybody, all programmers.
yeah. I think so too. Okay, Chris, I'm going to leave you because it's already a little bit running a little bit late here in Europe.
Yep.
I'd
Cool.
say enjoy your day if you have the time. Go outside, enjoy that sunny weather.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take the dog for a walk and, enjoy it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, have a good evening, and, this was a lot of fun. So,
yeah,
hopefully we'll get the rest of the little bugs fixed, and, anybody that wants to contribute, this is a good, little project to do that on.
yeah. And contributions are certainly appreciated. So, all right, Chris. That
Awesome.
being said, see you until
Yeah.
the next time. I'll keep you in the loop. If I have something usable, you'll be the first to know.
Cool. Awesome. I'm excited. This was a lot of fun. So,
Yeah,
yeah, now it's just going to be even more useful and easier to use. So,
yeah, yep,
it's
yep, yep, yep.
doing well. So, cool.
All
Thanks a
right,
bunch for having me. We'll talk soon.
all right. Talk soon. Bye, Chris.
Bye.
Okay, that was it. Bye, everybody. Until the next time. Bye bye.